Hello, artists and art bros. Today I'm going to do a watercolor painting on a hot pressed watercolor paper 300 GSM by Bao. And semi art watercolor is what I'm going to use. First is wet on wet technique. This is one of the common techniques that is used for watercolors since it's soluble by water. And as you can see here, I used it to paint the underpainting of the clouds, and I'm blocking out the big shapes that I see on the reference picture. This is no means a tutorial, but just some techniques that I could share to you guys. And next is wet on dry, which is what I used to put the bridge on the bottom side and the lamppost by the reference so that it won't blend to the sky and to the other things on the background, which are the hills and I think a pond. So yeah, and in here I'm just using the stroke to define the mountain, and I did this wrong, so I lifted up the color on it by using clean water and just dragging it down and removing it. There you go. It's like it never happened. But you can only do the lifting of the watercolor if it's still kind of wet on the surface. And no, I'm not in a park or something. This is actually just a photography setup. And yeah, as you can see on the left, there's the tripod. But continuing on the process, I am just looking at the shapes that I want on the reference picture. And here is another technique, which is dry brushing on the road, since it has many textures. But because this is a hot pressed paper, which now I know doesn't have any texture in it, it's pretty hard to do textures on this kind of paper. But through dry brushing, you can create some textures to an extent. I think this hot pressed paper is suitable for the reference picture that I got. Next technique that I've got is softening the edges, because as you can see here, this is where the bridge and the water meets. So I have to soften that edges, and here right now is I'm detailing and layering all sorts of colors to the pole and to the other sections of like the bridge. That's not exactly a bridge when I think about it, but yeah, I'm just going to refer it as the bridge. And as you can see here, I'm adding the mini details for the lamp because it's like a lamppost. And here I'm adding the reflections of the sun on the water and some leaves. And as you can see here, I'm using stippling as a watercolor technique, but then I realized that it was too time consuming, so I just splattered the paint onto the road, and I'm covering up the other sections of the painting since the road is the only thing that I want to have some splatter on. And for the sky, I'm adding some sorts of brown to desaturate some of the colors, and I'm also adding a little bit of more depth on the skies since it all looks kind of blurry. I chose this photo as the reference for my painting here on hot pressed paper because I thought it would look pretty with all the sorts of colors on the sky, and there's the muted colors of brown and green on the side. But then when I'm looking back at this, the green looks more saturated than what I should have put on the paper. Nevertheless, here now I'm going to use the wet on wet technique again for the sky so that it won't look rough edged. But yeah, I'm also softening up the edges of the skies and on the browns on the bottom part. And now I'm adding more details on the fences of the bridge. And this was the hardest part of everything that I did on this painting, since it was too little, and in watercolor everything spreads if you are not too careful enough, especially if the brush is too wet. Here's a little bit of close-up on the piece, but I'm still not done yet. I'm just showing you how I'm going to darken some of the values, since I looked at the reference picture again, and I'm also adding some muted colors beside the saturated colors so that it would have more contrast. And as I can see on the reference picture, it also has some rough edges. But yeah, it was really difficult to paint the clouds on this picture, since I'm not so good in painting skies and clouds overall. I think I'm not so good yet in adding textures through watercolors. So yeah, a sky is difficult to paint when you can see a lot of the edges, and it's soft and it's also rough, but it also looks cohesive, and it's really hard to pull through. But yeah, I'm really happy on this finished painting that I did, and let's see the results. Here is the final look of the painting. Beside it is the reference picture. Thank you for watching, and if you like it, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.